Hi everyone, welcome back to Aspergers from the Inside. You're here with Paul. I make weekly videos sharing the human side of autism, so make sure you hit subscribe to get the latest content. So have you ever had the experience where YouTube just kept recommending this one particular video and it just didn't go away and it kept pestering you until you eventually clicked on it? So I get a significant number of messages of people telling me that this is the very method which they found out that they were autistic themselves. So it might be my 7 signs of autism video. It might be the Are You Autistic? It might be, signs of autism in women or things like that. And it's not necessarily obvious why YouTube is recommending this, but it begs the question, does YouTube know something that I don't? Can YouTube identify autism even before the person themselves is aware of it? That's a pretty interesting question. What I find though is that sometimes, especially late identified adults, a lot of us have had the experience of knowing that there's something a little bit funny that I can't quite put my finger on. I feel different in a way that I can't quite describe, or there's something about my life that just doesn't quite make sense and I can't quite put my finger on what it is. And I'm not sure if it's me, or I'm not sure if I'm imagining it, or I'm not sure if it's something external. And for a lot of us, finding autism kind of gives an answer. I know in my personal experience, it gave me an answer of what was this thing that made me feel just that little bit different for a reason that I couldn't quite put my finger on my whole life. So what does autism know? Sorry, what does autism know? What does YouTube know that we don't know? And the answer is nothing, really. It's just got better pattern recognition software. So a lot of our behaviors are normal to us because, well, we don't know any better. And a lot of our behaviors, we feel as if I'm the only one in the world who does this. I've never met anyone else who, I don't know, ties their shoelaces with their teeth. No, that's not a good example. Anyway, serves me right for trying to come up with a random example at the last minute. However, with the advantage of big data, of millions and millions of individual pieces of data and people's behavioral preferences, what YouTube can do without any conscious input is just predict patterns. Other people have had a similar pattern of behavior to you, so we're going to recommend you a video similar to them. And somehow this ends up being that we can find each other by having a video recommended to us. Now, obviously, just because YouTube has been pestering you for a video does not make you autistic. However, if you're considering, is this me? Why have I been recommended this video? What is it like? Do I resonate with any of what this guy's saying? Do I feel a little bit different? Do I have any questions that need answering? I've made a handful of videos to answer those exact questions for those who are wondering, what is autism? Does it apply to me? Why am I even watching this video? So I'd recommend either my 7 signs of autism video, where we actually go through the 7 outwardly visible signs as defined by the DSM-5 diagnostic criteria. Or there are a couple of others like the 25 questions about Are You Autistic, which give much more of a human aspect to what it feels like to be in your position and asking these questions and trying to figure out the answer to, is this me or am I just making the whole thing up? If you're wondering, am I just making the whole thing up? You're not alone. And I think that phrase, you're not alone, is one of the most powerful messages for those of us who are late diagnosed or late identified autistic adults. It's so common in discussion forums and social groups and things like that for people to think I'm the only one in the world that does this, and then say, does anyone else do this? And all of a sudden it triggers all of these kind of Me Too moments where suddenly someone else says, yeah, I do that too. I also thought I was the only one. And it turns out there are others like me as well. So until we meet those other people who are out there, it can feel like we're all alone. I remember my very, very first support group meeting that I went to the day after I did a 5-minute internet quiz that told me I was probably autistic, right? And I was trying to answer the question for myself, what is autism and is this me? And when I got to the group, I was a bit confused because everyone in the group was so different from each other. And I thought, how on earth am I going to figure out if I belong to this group when everyone is so different? And actually, that is the primary paradigm shift that can only really be experienced once you have firsthand experience of the autism community. There is no normal to fit into. We are each different, but our own idiosyncrasies are unique to ourselves, and they're so different from everyone else that when you put us all together, you can't really stand out because we're all different in different ways. And so I'm not the odd one out anymore. So that's why my number one piece of advice, if you're asking these questions of yourself, sure, look up stuff online, check out my other videos, try and read up other blogs and testimonials and videos from a wide variety of people. But there's absolutely no substitute for meeting other autistic adults in real life and seeing what this strange condition that we read up on the internet, and it says things like, trouble with social emotional communication and maintaining relationships and fixated interests and repetitive behaviors. And it's really hard to relate to that stuff on a personal level. I know when I was first, well before I was seriously considering if I was on the spectrum or not, I was an engineer. I ticked a lot of the boxes, but I just kind of assumed that lots of other engineers probably tick a lot of these boxes as well. And I was Googling what is autism, and I was finding these medical definitions, like I was saying before about the fixated interests, repetitive behaviors, all of these things. And I just couldn't reconcile those words on the page to my life. I just didn't know what it actually meant, what it actually looked like. Or alternatively, things like challenges in social emotional communication. Like, well, doesn't everybody have that? I do okay at relationships, I guess. Doesn't everyone have trouble communicating themselves when they're upset and have some sensory things? I didn't realize my sensory profile was so atypical either. I just thought that was, close enough to normal not to think twice about it. But what you realize quite quickly by meeting other autistic adults, and leave your experience in the comments if you have experienced this as well for yourself personally, is that the experience of meeting those others is unlike any other social group that I've ever been to. There's a kind of quality about it that makes me feel like I've come home in a way that I can't quite explain very well. Anyway, I'm going around in circles. The biggest question is, what do I do if YouTube is keeping on recommending me these videos about autism? Does it mean that I'm autistic? And the answer is, well, it's probably worth finding out. That's probably the best way I can say that. YouTube can't diagnose autism, obviously, but what it can do is it can find patterns in our behavior and compare them to millions of other people and notice things that we ourselves did not notice originally. So it's a relatively common experience that if YouTube is recommending you a video about autism again and again and again, maybe there's a reason for that, and maybe you should check it out. So I'd highly recommend you take a quick dip down the YouTube rabbit hole if you haven't already. But by far, the most effective way to understand what autism looks like in adults is by meeting others who are on the spectrum. So I'd encourage you to find a support group or social group in your local area if possible. Otherwise, we also have an online social group, and I'll leave a link in the video description as well if you're wanting to get online and see what autism looks like in real life, so that you can have a better idea of answering this question of if this autism or Asperger's or this whole new world of terminology and identity might be something that applies to you as well. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thanks to everyone who was watching live, and I'll see you at the same time next week. Bye.